It's the Ross Tucker Football Podcast.
Oh, yeah, it is. But it's not just any Ross Tucker Football Podcast. I never do that. It's a Monster Monday that we are recording on a Sunday night, which we do a lot in the offseason. Presented, of course, by DraftKings. Cannot wait to talk to my main man, Albert Breer from Sports Illustrated. He writes the Monday morning quarterback column. Can't wait to hear what he's writing about tomorrow. But I have him on because of so many things he's written about recently. You know, he's not on every week like Greg Cosell or every other week, maybe like Andrew Brandt, but Albert's becoming a regular because he's just that good. I will give you the winners of the Spread the Word contest via social media, sponsor confirmation email winner, and YouTube shout out winner on Wednesday's show. So you actually still have a couple more days to enter any of those contests. The sponsors this week: Lumen Skin, LinkedIn, Athletic Greens, Buck Mason. It's Big Show time.
The Big Show.
Albert, always appreciate you coming on the show. I think people know, follow him on social media at Albert Breer. You know what's interesting? How many columns do you write? Because you do the Monday morning quarterback, which is amazing, but then you do Monday afternoon, but then you do like a Thursday one. How many is it at this point?
It's 4. It's the mailbag is one of them. The Friday column, which, you know, during the season is a little bit more game centric. It's a little easier to organize that in the season because, like, obviously the Monday column's coming out of the games, and then, you know, Friday's a little bit more topical or big picture, that sort of thing. So yeah, it's a lot to manage, but you know, it beats working, right, Ross? I mean, we're sitting here and we get to cover football, and it's a lot better than a lot of my friends' jobs, I'll tell you that.
That is what I always say. Check him out, of course, on social media at Albert Breer. Does stuff for NBC Boston as well as 985, the Sports Hub up there for those of you in Boston. All right, let's dive into it. I want to start. I definitely want to talk about what you wrote this past week about Bruce Arians and Tom Brady.
Mm-hmm.
And I definitely want to talk about what you wrote about the week before about how Cleveland kind of got back in it with Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
But the biggest news over the weekend hit close to home for you, for sure.
Yeah.
Just absolutely tragic. I'll talk about it more later after the interview. But Dwayne Haskins, former first-round pick, played for your college, your alma mater, Ohio State, hit by a car, a truck, I suppose, and killed Saturday morning at the age of 24, Albert.
Yeah, it's you know, just and I got to know Dwayne a little bit, but you know, obviously, you know, it's like a little bit that's just like a reporter-player relationship. So what you do in a situation like this is you call the people you know best that know the person. And you know, universally, I just say this, Ross, like the people that know him best really felt like the kid was starting to turn a corner. You know, the fact that he had some growing up to do when he came out of Ohio State is no secret. You know, and I think it cost him early in his career, but you know, like listening to the stories of how he had really started to become more of a professional, and he got married during the off season last year, and you know, he's taking these steps, and there was really a lot of hope around him that, like, that potential that everybody saw, you know, in 2018, during that breakout season at Ohio State, maybe he was going to be able to deliver on that potential. And maybe he'd really be able to go into Pittsburgh and compete with Mitch Trubisky for playing time. And so, you know, like it was just this great sadness that, like, you know, he had turned that corner, but more than anything else, I think it's just the person he was. And I think, like, even like, again, like a lot of us do, like, again, he had that growing up to do when he was in his 20s, but he always had a big heart. And I think, like, anybody who'd ever talked with him, anybody who's ever spent 5 minutes with him could see that he had $1 million smile. He was great. You know, if you talk to the coaches at Ohio State, they'll always talk about how he was around their kids, and the way he could light up a room, and just what sort of personality he had. And so, you know, it's really just a horrible shame that we won't get to see where Dwayne Haskins was going to take, you know, his life. And it's just, I don't know, just profound sadness from the people that were around him, and it's anytime somebody that age obviously passes away, it's hard for a lot of people to deal with. But I think in this case, like you saw a kid who had so much good in him and was sort of kind of finding his way, and this happens. It's just tragic.
Never met him, Albert. Don't know much about him other than it seems like everyone genuinely really liked him.
Yeah.
Always has a smile on his face, upbeat, happy. I mean, he had one of the greatest college football seasons ever. And as
Yeah.
a one-year starter, it's kind of remarkable. The only sort of negative, and you've said growing up to do a couple times, was that he was a little bit immature, which I kind of feel like a lot of 21, 22, 23-year-olds are.
Yeah.
It's the guys that are very mature at that age that they're almost the
The
outliers, right?
rarities. Yeah. I mean, and I think it gets magnified when you're a quarterback, because so much is expected of you right away. And I think it's easy to overlook like just how great that 1 year was. He transformed Ohio State. Like Ohio State was not a hotbed for quarterbacks. He goes and throws 50 touchdown passes. I mean, he had a hand in Justin Fields winding up there. And, now like you look at the pipeline that they've been able to build where it's 5-star after 5-star. I mean, that was Dwayne Haskins that sort of created that for Ryan Day, and so I think it was sort of like, his story at Ohio State was interesting because it went from, being the backup that everybody was intrigued by to being this like instant superstar who all of a sudden has, had a national name, Heisman finalist, first round pick. And, like then, he just sort of gets thrown into a situation where he's going back home to where he grew up. And I think we all know, like, the issues the Washington organizations had. He gets thrown into that situation, which probably wasn't an ideal one. Not that it wasn't, some of it wasn't his fault, but like, not that it was not an ideal one for a young quarterback to go into. And, again, like, I think it took him time, maybe more time than others, but it took him time to learn how to be a pro. And I think that's one of the things that people noticed again, like since he got to Pittsburgh. I think Mike Tomlin had an effect on him. I think, watching an accomplished veteran like Ben Roethlisberger had an effect on him. And even like where he was at the end, like he was in Florida working with his teammates. My understanding is like Mitch Trubisky had the guys down to get some work in. And so like that's sort of that was why he was down there and that was where he was working. And so yeah, again, I mean, it's like a lot of us, like I mean, I know when I was that age, I had a ton of growing up to do. I think most people do. And it's a shame again to see a kid who was doing that growing up have it cut short this way.
Speaking of Florida, Albert, you wrote this past week about the timing of when Arians knew that he was going to
Mhm.
retire. I think everyone's kind of curious about Albert. Maybe I'll call it the chicken and the egg, right?
Yeah.
Like, did Brady know Arians was retiring
Mhm.
before he said he was coming back? Because if not, you think Brady would be pretty frustrated that he said he'd come back and then the head coach leaves. So did Brady already know? Arian says he didn't decide until he knew Brady was going to come back. Were these discussions sort of all discussed together? I think everyone's genuinely curious
Yeah.
regarding the timing of who knew what when.
It's so weird because, I was at the breakers for the owners meetings and I saw BA at the bar and I went to get lunch and he was eating lunch on the other end of the bar and I went to say hello and we made small talk for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever. And like my takeaway from like talking with him and just kind of BSing was like he seemed like he was really at peace. I had no idea like that he was gonna that night he was gonna fly back to Tampa and by within 48 hours he wouldn't be the head coach anymore. I do know this, like having talked to Jason Light about it, and having talked to Todd Bowles about it and kind of how the process worked. Bruce had sort of confided in Jason, and they have these dinners on Friday nights, and he'd sort of confided in Jason that like he didn't he had real thoughts about walking away, but he didn't want to hand the sort of situation that you would have to the sort of situation where you'd be like completely rebuilding something over to Todd Bowles because he knows, like what that would look like. And, going from the success they've had the last couple of years to having to having, maybe a 6 or a 7 win season with Blaine Gabbert at quarterback instead of Tom Brady, like he didn't want to put Todd Bowles in that situation. And so as the discussions between Light and Arians started to, kind of evolved, Brady decides he's going to come back. And, at that point, a couple days after, day after maybe that Tuesday, that Monday or Tuesday, um, you know, Bruce went into Jason's office and said, I think this is it. I think this is what I got to do. And look, I don't know for sure. I don't know what Tom Brady said to the Glazers when he was over in England, right? Like I don't know what happened in that conversation. You've been around Brady though. I don't think it's his nature to go in and deliver some sort of ultimatum to an owner, you know? Like I don't like now would he be honest? Yeah, I think he'd be honest, but I don't think he would go in there and say it's me or him. Like I just don't think that's Brady's makeup to do that. That's never been the way he is. And so do I think it's possible that Bruce maybe saw the writing on the wall and knew because there was tension last year that maybe the best thing was to hand it over to Todd? Sure. Do I think there was an acknowledgement in the organization that maybe Bowles, because of his Bill Parcells background, lined up philosophically with Tom a little bit better than Bruce might have? I think that's possible too. But I just it's knowing what I know about Tom, it's just hard for me to envision a scenario where he's going in there and laying down the sword and saying to Joel Glazer or any of the Glazers, look, like I'm not gonna I want to come back, but I can't come back as long as Bruce is the coach. I don't think that occurred as much as it might seem like it did based on the timing of everything.
Yeah, I guess in my head, what seems most logical is that they all kind of talked
Yeah.
and they all were on the same page that if Tom came back, Bruce would eventually retire. I I don't really I find it hard to believe that Brady would say he's coming back and then Arians would retire and Brady had no inkling of that. That does not seem that likely to
Right.
me. It seems to
And
me
again,
like
I
Brady would
don't
have had
know, like
some knowledge.
I don't know. I mean, like I don't know what happened in the conversation over in Manchester. Like I said, that could have been part of the conversation with the Glazers, and maybe the Glazers knew something. But as it was explained to me, like Bruce really delivered the news and saw an opportunity there, delivered the news to Jason. I think Jason had an idea, like it could be on the table.
Got it. Well, we didn't think Deshaun Watson and the Browns would be on the table. It's been a couple weeks now,
Mhm.
but I know you did some digging there as well, Albert, in terms of how the Browns got back in this thing. I mean, how the Browns were able to get
Yeah.
Deshaun Watson when they were seemingly the first team eliminated, which I think is always a little bit interesting and
Mhm.
weird. It's like, how do you feel if you're a Browns fan on two levels? One, the lawsuits against Deshaun Watson. The other one, it's like he didn't want to go there,
Yeah.
but I think it's pro sports and they got him.
I think there are two like I think like there are two factors. Number one, like the contract, obviously, like that. I think when the Browns saw the opening, like seeing the opening there, like made them all right, like we've already kind of crossed the Rubicon when it comes to Baker Mayfield. So we got to come strong and we got to find a way to close this out. But I do think there was a football element of this. And I have, I mean, like, I think Deshaun was being forthright, at least with some of that, where, like my understanding was early in the process, because of everything over the last couple of years, Deshaun and the people around him were prioritizing, like, what's going to be the most comfortable thing for me to re enter the league? Like, what's going to be the most comfortable place for me to re enter the league? And I don't think it was any mistake that the places that he was like the places he looked at were all in the South, right? Like played high school football in Georgia, played college football in South Carolina, played pro football in Texas. And, you look at the three teams that were sitting there after the Browns were eliminated. Carolina, 4 hours from where he grew up. Atlanta near his hometown, and New Orleans also in the South. And my understanding is like when he went to bed on Thursday night, because at that point, like they'd already sort of started to talk about the contract with these teams, and it became clear that new money and new guarantees were going to be part of whatever the arrangement was. Like Deshaun was thinking these are the three teams. When he woke up next morning, I don't know that he was completely comfortable with any of the three. And it sounded to like the way it was explained to me is sort of like, are there football reasons why I'm doing this? Are there football reasons why I want to go to Atlanta? Are there football reasons why I want to go to New Orleans? Are there football reasons why I want to go to the Panthers? And I mean, like it sounded like he had this moment of clarity where it was Cleveland is the best football situation. And the Browns obviously seeing that opening, and once they got that phone call, I like that it'd even be a possibility that he'd want to go to Cleveland, came through with an enormous contract, an unprecedented contract to drive it home. So the contract was a factor, but I don't think it was the only factor. I do think that from a football standpoint, he looked at where the Browns are, and you can look at their roster versus the other three and their cap situation versus the other three, and you can see where the roster that Cleveland's built has made it so like that's a pretty optimal situation for a franchise quarterback to step into.
You think that he just changed contracts forever, Andrew? I mean, Andrew, Albert, do you think
Well,
that
Andrew is the expert on this stuff, right?
yeah, I know, but you're in it too. Do you think
um,
that this is gonna become the new standard?
no, I mean, I think it sort of depends on what happens with Russell Wilson, with Lamar Jackson, with Joe Burrow, with Trevor, with Justin Herbert. Really, and I can remember going through this with during the Kirk Cousins situation 4 years ago, and I remember talking to somebody, and I can't remember who it was. I think it was somebody with a team, a cap guy with a team, and I remember asking, like, what do you think happens here? Do you think that this changes the way quarterback contracts are forever? And he said it really just depends on what happens with the next 3 or 4 contracts. And sure enough, Matt Ryan did a contract, was a great contract with the Falcons, right? Like we've seen how good that contract was, but it was sort of a conventional structure. He got guarantees into the 4th year, which was groundbreaking, but they had the non-guaranteed years on the end. Aaron Rodgers does a contract. Jared Goff does a contract. Carson Wentz does a contract. And Russell Wilson does a contract. All those contracts had traditional guarantee structures. And so it's a long way of saying this is going to kind of come down to what sort of contract does Lamar Jackson sign? Is Lamar Jackson willing to put himself out there and say, no, I'm not signing anything that isn't fully guaranteed? Is Russell Wilson willing to do that when Denver comes to the table? And that might not be till next year, but when Denver comes to the table, is he going to say, I've been looking for a baseball contract for all of these years. Now there's one out there, so I'm not going to take anything less than that. Or Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert willing to do that when they're eligible for deals next year. So I think this is all going to sort of hinge on whether or not other players are willing to push the envelope and take a stand. And this is like how it works in baseball too, right, Ross? Like about this. Like they all sort of, I mean, they've all got this kind of like thing about them where it's like how I do my contract's going to affect the way the next guy does his contract. So I got to be a tough guy at the bargaining table. That's the sort of thing that's going to have to happen here, I think, for it to become a standard and for it to become the way business is done going forward.
What should we be looking for in tomorrow's MMQB, Albert?
So we have a pretty extensive look at how the Denver Broncos are going to set up their offseason program with Nathaniel Hackett. And he's going to take us through how he and his staff have been building an offense for Russell Wilson, and kind of how the experience with Aaron Rodgers has informed the way that they're going to do it with Russell. And also some interesting stuff on Hackett himself. I'm sure you've talked to him. He's a really interesting dude. And so there will be some stuff on how his experience as a hip hop dance teacher and his experience as a now, do you know what forensics is? Not like the science. Do you know what forensics is?
For football?
No, 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 no. For like, it is
Forensics for like crimes?
no, no, no. And that's what I thought too. Forensics is actually also competitive acting. Did you know that you could letter in that?
No.
Okay, so Nathaniel Hackett is actually a 4-time varsity letterman in forensics, in competitive acting. And so we were talking about how ready he is to stand in front of the team for the first time. And he said to me, he's like, I've never been scared of any of that. And the reason why is because he has done things like lettering and forensics in high school and like teaching hip hop dance when he was in college. So no stage fright for him. Tomorrow is no big deal. He's ready to attack all of that because he has all of this weird experience in his background. And yeah, more than ready to get to work with Russell Wilson after 3 years working with Aaron Rodgers.
That is amazing. Check him out on social media at Albert Breer. Can't wait to read it. Thank you, Albert.
Thanks, Ross.
And thank all of you that realize how important skincare is. Look, if you think just washing your face in the shower with that one shower gel you've been using since high school, give me a break, dudes. I mean, thanks to Lumen, you can drop that bottle of 3-in-1 and start using products to actually take care of your skin. So I'm using Lumen now. I get the highest quality products, whether it's for the under eye, dark circles, wrinkles, sun damage, whatever. Starting is crazy easy. You take a 2-minute quiz on their website. They'll tell you exactly which routine is best for you based on your skincare needs. All their products come with instructions. So it's extremely easy. Will help protect your skin from potential damage or future acne. Plus, all their products are made only using natural ingredients that actually work, like licorice root extract, rose flower oil, charcoal powder. Look, skincare should not be that complicated that we like dread doing it. And for me, it's less than 90 seconds out of my day. That's what I like. Crazy easy to use. Level up your skincare game with Lumen Skin today. Go to lumenskin.com/Ross to get your free trial of Lumen's products. That's LUMIN skin.com/Ross to get your free trial of Lumen's products. Lumenskin.com/Ross.
Tuck's Takes.
Hey, Ross. Well, we have to start. I know you and Albert already touched on it, but your thoughts on the very sad news. Dwayne Haskins dies after being hit by what would we say, a truck yesterday in South Florida at the age of 24.
Awful. It's so interesting, bro. I look at things so differently now. For so many years, I would have thought, gosh, he's a player just like me, or he's around my age. Now I almost look at it like you think about your own kids. I'm at the age now, I'm 43. I could be Dwayne's dad. And my heart hurts so much for his wife and his parents. And, he made it. He made it. He had a great career at Ohio State, first round pick in the NFL, was making a bunch of money. Obviously he was getting the minimum from the Steelers, but he had put away a lot of money. He's 24 and should have been in the prime of his life in terms of enjoying life. And it hurts my heart.
Tuck's Takes.
Moving on, let's talk about Deebo Samuel. Removed the 49ers from all of his social media profiles.
Is this going to be like an all the time thing now? I mean, it's just kind of annoying. It's like, I guess he wants a contract from them. I don't blame him for wanting a contract. I guess this is a way to express displeasure, but it just strikes me as sort of immature, right? Like, and maybe it's leverage and maybe it works. I don't know. But it just seems to me like, can't your agent just tell the team that the offer is not good enough? Or you want a better offer, you want to offer now, or it's disrespectful, or whatever it is. This removing from social media profiles, it feels immature to me. Maybe I'm just out of the loop. Who knows? Maybe I'm just not cool. I don't know, but it kind of feels immature, like I said. I don't blame him at all for wanting to get a new contract. I think he absolutely deserves it. I don't have any problem with players holding out. I really don't have any problem with it, players doing anything, whatever they think it takes to get a new deal. Just the social media scrubbing. It just seems like, but then how do you take them away and then put them all back? Like he deleted like 64 of 180 pictures. I don't know.
Tuck's Takes.
Let's talk about some of the moves that have happened since we last spoke. Bears signed tight end Ryan Griffin. Browns signed quarterback Josh Dobbs and safety Ronnie Harrison. Eagles ink Olympic hurdler Devin Allen. D lineman Calais Campbell back with the Baltimore Ravens on a 2-year deal, $12.5 million. And safety Rodney McLeod signs with Indianapolis.
So I think the Jets had just cut Griffin. He's a solid backup tight end. Dobbs, the Browns want a third string quarterback they feel good about because remember, I'm sure they expect Deshaun Watson to get suspended. So they want to make sure that they've got a guy in that role that can back up Jacoby Brissett. Because what if Brissett gets hurt? You know, you can't just get these type of quarterbacks at LinkedIn like you guys can get your jobs just by creating a free job post in minutes on LinkedIn Jobs to reach your network and beyond to the world's largest professional network of over 770 million people. Then you just add your job and the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring so your network can help you find the right people to hire. I love the simple tools like the screening questions so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs number one in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates you want to talk to faster. Every week, nearly 40 million job seekers visit LinkedIn. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/Ross. That's linkedin.com/Ross to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. That makes sense to me to bring in Dobbs. Harrison's back. Devin Allen was like a 2-time Olympic hurdler. That's interesting that the Eagles signed him. He ran an unbelievable 40 time at the Oregon Pro Day. Calais Campbell's going to play forever, and I'm a big fan of Rodney McLeod, both personally and professionally. I know Frank Reich knows him and likes him. I think that's a good signing for the Colts. He's not what he used to be, but I think he's a very solid veteran to have on the back end. Shout outs are in order for Pizza Boy Brewing, Sporticulture, HumanHeadNYC.com, SteakhouseSports.com, Go-Bengals.com, and Evergreen Economics. Check out me and Emery talking O-line on tomorrow morning's College Draft Podcast. Hopefully you're watching all those episodes. Other than that, I think we're done here.
Thanks for listening to the Ross Tucker Football Podcast. Make sure to also subscribe to the Fantasy Feast, Even Money, Business of Sports, and College Draft. All available at Apple Podcasts, rosstucker.com, or wherever podcasts can be found.
A lot of times on the show, I mentioned DraftKings. Here's what you need to know. You got to be 21 or older, New Jersey, Indiana, or Pennsylvania only. New customers only. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER, or in Indiana, 1-800-9-WITH-IT. By the way, if what I was talking about included a deposit bonus, doesn't always, sometimes it does. Deposit bonus requires 25 times playthrough, and deposit bonuses are paid out in site credit.